Hello everybody. I skipped a day or two of that whole daily journaling thing. I mean, it's not perfect practice. I'm not a perfect person. Mistakes are alright sometimes, especially with something like this. It's not something that I'm proud of necessarily, but it happens. Had a rough couple days emotionally. Not anything too big has been happening, just bad emotions rearing up. Probably going to sign up for therapy tomorrow. Today I booked a psychiatry appointment for me to start getting on some medication because I've been dealing with unmedicated ADHD for the last 2.5 or so years now. And I think therapy would help too. With ADHD, which I'm now clinically diagnosed, nobody can tell me that I'm lying or I'm lazy or I'm stupid or whatever. It's actually a problem with my brain that whoever wants to tell me that no it isn't, well, that's okay. You can disagree with thousands of clinical trials, medical trials, and a board certified psychiatrist with a PhD, but personally, I'm not going to do all that because I'm not fucking stupid. I don't know. Yeah. So hopefully medication coming soon. But I watched the video by Healthy Gamer GG, aka Dr. K. Love that guy. He got me through a couple bad patches in my life. His YouTube videos, very helpful information. Nothing quite as helpful as therapy, of course, but a lot of stuff that you probably want to hear from therapists in a very digestible way for people of the younger generations especially. Like, I feel like he talks in a very, not boring, but not overly entertaining. He gives the topics and the concepts that he discusses the respect that they are due. However, he does not attempt to bore us like some droll lecture from a professor that would rather be anywhere else but the classroom, you know? He's not just reading from the textbook. He's reading from his own personal experience, years of research from him, and years of research from colleagues and the entire psychiatric community. And recently I watched a video, which I'll put in the description. It's like I've been putting at least one video or piece of content in the description to suggest to you. And I guess, I don't know what I'm going to title this video, because I don't make the titles for the video beforehand. I record the video, speak into the camera, title it daily video number whatever, and then I'm like, what should I put as a subtitle? And it might be something like I'm going to therapy or I'm considering therapy, but because I am. And the video talks about a guy who posted, I think, in a Discord forum about like, how do I get out of my own head? It feels like all these problems are in here, and I've tried so much and tried again. And it keeps failing, and I just keep crashing, and I keep burning. And I want to stop. I'm done with critical analysis. I want to solve this problem from a new creative perspective. And then Dr. K deconstructs this. You can watch the actual video. I might get some parts wrong because it's, you know. But basically he says what the guy in the thing is doing is he's trying to solve an emotional problem with cognitive skills. There's the domain of cognition and the domain of emotion. Now, not to say that these two are separate. I was reading actually studies today that are about the separation between cognition and emotion, insofar that there really isn't one. Like, the skills are different, but they are very intertwined. And he said even like in certain ways with modern therapy methods and I think like the yogic perspective, you can all use cognitive skills as a supplement for emotional skills, but nothing is kind of as good as the real thing. And he's saying that this guy, what he's trying to do is run away from his feelings, or not necessarily run away, but problem solve himself out of his feelings to not have to feel them. And that's a very logical perspective, right? Like, and I do that a lot with my feelings, you know? I don't want to feel anxious. What do? You know? And while medication is effective, I don't think it's the right path of treatment for me, so I can't just anxiety pill it away. Not can't, but I don't think that I should. I feel like, because with medication for ADHD, I've exhausted all of my other options, and I really don't want to be going to therapy for the rest of my entire life for something that is a chemical balance in my brain. That's something that you can, but the anxiety, I suspect, from my own experience, for myself, because I have mild symptoms of anxiety and depression, that come from, are comorbid with my ADHD, which I believe is genetic, and is a chemical functioning thing, which is essentially to mean that with the ADHD and the struggle that comes with living with ADHD, I believe that over the years I've developed coping mechanisms in my brain, subconsciously and subconsciously. Like, for example, I plan out the ass, I have a calendar, I do all of these methods, I Pomodoro, just to get myself to do the work and to perform not even at the same level of my peers who are neurotypical or presumed neurotypical, we'll say, but seemingly neurotypical, that don't go to therapy, that don't take any medications. And I perform worse than they do, but better than I was before. And you can say, oh, it's just effort, it's just study strategies. I've tried all that. Whatever you're going to suggest that's not medications and therapy, I've tried all of it. And I don't want to be some Debbie Downer, but sometimes the solution to a problem is not within you. I've got another video to recommend about dialectical materialism, Marxist philosophy a little bit, but mostly in relation to embodied cognition. This video I was sent a day or two ago by a friend of mine saying, I thought you would like this, and oh boy did I love it. It's great, by a YouTuber that I'll put the description of. It should be the second link in the description. The deal is with this, I essentially, I've always, okay, so, this is gonna be a little bit, I need to, this is gonna be a long one. Essentially, I'm somebody who believes that Descartes was right, at least in some senses. That you can't prove that anything exists except for your mind, because the mind is the only thing that has to exist in order for you to be able to think about things, and to be able to interrogate the world, say, well, my senses can't be right. You have to have the ability to interrogate it, which comes from a mind. Now, then this proceeds into many forms of thought like mind-body dualism, which I'm somehow both a believer of mind-body dualism and not. You can argue with me all day on this, I don't really care. But here's my perspective, essentially. I think that you cannot necessarily prove that anything but the brain exists. Or the mind, my apologies, the mind. However, I think that if somebody's like, well, my mind only exists and none of this is actually real, you should go and, this is a joke, punch them in the face and then see how quickly their opinion changes. Because they can say, well, I'm just feeling this. Dude, be fucking for real. Because as much as you can only prove that that's how things work, I can't necessarily prove that person A murdered person B, but I can see that, oh, well, I wake up in the same bed every day, I wake up that I went to sleep in, things are the same, the laws of physics are seemingly consistent, and same with other things, and person A happens to be holding a gun with their fingerprints on it that matches the caliber and model used to kill person B. Like, correlation doesn't equal causation, but at some point you have to take a leap of logic from one to the other, and have with no reasonable doubt that this thing happened. I think it's unreasonable to say that nothing is real because you can't necessarily prove that it's real. Like, yeah, not necessarily, but you basically can. It's kind of like the asymptote. If you take a function such as log of x, it never reaches 0. It goes like, this is 0 on the, I don't know if this is 0, and this is log of x. It goes through point x equals 1 at y equals 0, and then keeps going. But yeah, it grazes 0, but never touches it. It gets real close, but never quite there. Or I can't remember if that's the case, it gets there, or it never passes it, one of the two. Either way, it never reaches 0 as far as I know. But it still approaches it, and you can say that log of x, when x is approaching negative infinity, approaches 0, even though it doesn't necessarily reach 0, you know? And that's kind of how like evidence works as well. Even though you weren't there, you couldn't see it happen, and you can't know that everything is real, you can still deduce what's going on, you know, from evidence. And I feel like it's a stupid philosophical point to try to debunk evidence-based methodologies. Or it's a stupid argument, not because it's necessarily wrong, but it's, I guess you could say, you could call me a pragmatist or whatever, but I think it's not useful, because regardless of whether or not things are real, you will still wake up probably in the same bed you slept in the last night. Things will still be fairly consistent, and you, more than likely, within approaching 100% levels of chance, live in a consistent universe that doesn't change the laws of itself, and reality doesn't change the laws of itself that often, truly. So that's my perspective. I believe that Descartes was right, but I think that people that say, well, you can't prove anything, are fucking stupid, because while you can't objectively prove it, our perspective is in a way subjective either way, so it approaches an objective reality, which I think is good enough for all intents and purposes. You know, I've always been saying intensive purposes, but I didn't know it was intents and purposes. So, for most intents and purposes, unless you're some fucking epistemologist or whatever. And then I think you can have approximate knowledge of most things, which approaches truth. Doesn't necessarily mean truth, but it approaches it. Yeah. So, it's good. That's what I believe. And the thing brings up some points of mind-body dualism that I was aware of. Hello. Okay, the video stopped recording. Anyways, I wasn't necessarily a believer in mind-body dualism, but I also wasn't a disbeliever, you know? And then this woman, I presume, showed a lot of evidence of embodied cognition being a much more valid theory for how the brain and the mind interact, and how the body and the mind interact. That we are our body in more ways than we think, you know? Anyways, where was I going with this? Oh, yes. So, she then brought up the point of dialectics, and how even though this is now, I'm going to leave in my own thing. This is now, she brought up the point of dialectical materialism, and then I kind of was like, oh, we have free will. We do have free will, and we are part of the material universe, so that means that we can, even though we are affected by the material universe, so our conditions, our genetics, and so on, our body, we can affect things within it that make things better, right? And I didn't realize how much before I realized that I thought a lot of things were in your head, but after getting diagnosed with ADHD and seeing this video of like, we can affect things that are within our world, but that doesn't mean that we're not gonna, like, we are gonna continue to be affected by them. Like, if you get shot, you have the free will to be able to try and dig the bullet out or cover the hole or whatever, right? But you're still shot, you know? It doesn't change the situation that you're in, but you can influence some parts of the outcome. Or you could, and this isn't like a victim blaming analogy or anything, you could try, for example, if you were an antagonist in this situation and you were trying to start a problem, you could try figuring out maybe, why do I start problems? Why did I get shot, you know? And try either avoiding or the situation, or fixing the problem that caused the situation in the first place if you were the majority causer of it or something. That's my example anyways. And then I was thinking about like my brain, and I always thought that I could kind of, like, since I was like very young, 14 or so, that I could logic my way out of things. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but not really, because I always realized it was a stupid thing. And then I now kind of realize, after paying $3,000 to get an ADHD diagnosis, watching that video about how you actually are affected by the world, no matter how special you think you are, and then watching Healthy Gamer GG's video about essentially cognitive and emotional processes are different, and different skills, so you need certain skills to solve certain problems. and learn to digest those emotions. I can't do it alone, and I don't think most people should have to. And I'm technically most people. So, decided I'm going to therapy because I'm tired of feeling guilty and responsible for problems that were not my fault in the first place that I've just been trying to solve. I may have, I guess you could say, not solved them as effectively as I wanted to, but at the end of the day, the causes of these problems are not my fault. And I'm tired of taking not necessarily responsibility to fix them, but blame for not fixing them. Because at the end of the day, I didn't choose to be born like this, you know? I didn't choose to be born in these circumstances, and I didn't choose to be the person that I am today in many aspects. Like, I didn't choose to be 5'3", I didn't choose to be my race, my sex, my class background, and so on, you know? So I don't know. I don't really know what the point of this video was today, but I just wanted to share those two resources because I think that it kind of helped me realize that there are things, it's not that you are powerless within the universe, but you are not exempt from its laws. And you are not exempt from cause and effect. However, you can be your own cause to do certain effects, you know? Yeah. I don't know what else. Another thing, I think I'll stop after this, but cognition and emotion, what he talked about was essentially like, this guy's trying to solve emotional problems with cognitive skills, which can work to an extent, but it is a crutch more than anything. Those are skills that you have to build, really. And not a lot of people do. Or some people don't for one reason or another, you know? And I think the dialectical kind of thinking, I don't know that much about dialectics. I'm probably getting a lot of this wrong. I did a lot of reading this morning on dialectics, and it's very confusing. They are right that a lot of people say you can't really theorize a dialectic in the same way that you can theorize something about like a scientific method or whatever, because it is something that is, you see it in practice rather than make a theory or a formula about it, because it's a relationship between interactions of something absolutes. I didn't understand it too much. But like, for example, I'm somebody who has free will, but I'm also somebody who's affected by material conditions. What can I do? The synthesis of those two ideas, the, I guess, resolving of the contradiction in the dialectical sense here to create a new dialectic is going to therapy and getting ADHD meds, acting on this, but acting in a specific way that keeps in mind that I am both a product of the universe, but also somebody who's able to influence it. To my own will, to an extent. And that, combined with the emotional thing, led me to believe that this is what I have to do now. And I think that for my past self, I don't want to call it remorse, but like, to make up for all the wrongs that I feel like I've wronged my past self for blaming myself for these things that aren't my fault, for the missed assignments and the nights crying about how hard it is to exist in a world that like doesn't work around my brain, and trying so hard to activate sectors in my brain that just do not work the same way that other people's do. I don't know. It's weird, but I feel like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. Like, it's not like I don't have to try. I'm still beholden to the responsibilities and, I guess you could say, consequences that a normal person is, but I can stop trying to enforce them myself and kind of let the world throw them at me and be more remorseful, be more caring, be more empathetic with my own situation, and see that I don't want to say that people are statistics, but in this situation I am statistically the same as someone else, you know? I'm the same as that diagnosis that is in the book. Not saying that's all I am, all I ever will be, But those are the issues that I have, and they're not something that can simply be solved on my own. I've mitigated them to the best that I can, and I think that it is truly not something that I can control. And that is a relief. It's scary to think that the best way out of the situation is to put my health in the hands of somebody else instead of trying to do it alone, but it's not been working. And if I was to continue to do this and try to figure it out on my own over and over again, doing the same thing and expecting a different result, I would be crazy. So yeah, TLDW. I'm going to therapy and hopefully getting on meds, and hopefully my life will get better. And if it does not, I will take the joys that come with it, and I will behold and be with my sorrows as they come with it as well. I want to keep talking because I think there's just a little bit more I want to say. Go watch Dr. K's video. Alright, that's it.